Welcome back to another episode of Shark Jockey Weekly. This week we got our first inaugural guest, special guest. We got financial guru to the athletes and to the stars, Pi Chevasika. And we brought Pi in today to talk about something, Calvin and I have been going over for the past couple of weeks, talking about the money going into the NFL. And really, Pi is going to be here today to really shed some light, give a little bit more detail into the recent announcement of private equity money going into the NFL. So we're going to jump right in it tonight. Pi, how's it going, man?
It's going good. It's going good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
So, Pi, for our fans and our listeners out there, kind of break down what is a private equity fund?
So you have traditional investment strategies for a lot of retail investors where they can go invest in the stock market, where they're investing in, an individual position, whether it's buying Apple stock, Microsoft, etc. And that's one way to invest in the market. Mutual funds, bonds, those are all conventional ways of investing in the market as we know it. What you'll find is that is what's considered a public market, okay? What a lot of people will do when they're looking to create alternative investment strategies that are not correlated to the current market or the public markets is they'll look at investments in private equity. Private equity is literally that. It's a private position that's created off book or outside of the public eye to create, essentially investment in various opportunities. It could be a small business, it could be a tech company, it could be real estate investment. In a lot of cases, what we're hearing about today is sports clubs, whether it's an MLB team, whether it's an MLS team, NFL, NBA, etc. So you're seeing what's happening is a lot of people are taking their resources, especially high net worth individuals, are taking those resources and then in turn finding groups where they can go in and purchase equity positions or ownership, if you will, into these sports teams. So private equity, by its very nature, is when a high net worth investor or maybe a group of investors puts together money and allows them to go in and buy a percentage of a particular investment strategy. In this case, it would be the NFL.
That's dope. When you say high net worth, give us kind of a range of where that may start at.
Well, you can't have $500. I can tell you that. What the typical term is accredited investor. Okay, that's usually someone that's got a net worth of over $1 million, at least $250,000 in investable assets. So, generally speaking, accredited investors are the ones that are invested in private equity deals. Those people can act in various forms. In some cases, when they're making smaller investments, they're taking on what's called a limited partnership investment stake. So you can be an LP, which is essentially a silent partner, right? I'm just essentially paying for the right to take advantage of whatever gains we see in that given investment structure. I can also be a general partner. General partner has a much more substantial stake. They also have voting rights. So not only is their equity position typically a little bit higher, but they usually have the ability to influence the actual organization. When you get a number of different LPs working together, they too can steer the ship, so to speak, right? There's opportunities where they could potentially have voting rights depending on the shares or ownership percentage that they've got or the stake they've got in the given organization. So like for instance, if we were talking about the Dallas Cowboys are the most profitable business, right, in sports. $10 billion is what they typically do. It doesn't matter they don't win. Like the business of the Cowboys is where they do. With a valuation at $10 billion, the liquidity opportunity for the owners is very, very minimal because you've got to have so much money to get in and say, I want to invest. But those guys are saying, well, like we have no way to exit, what we've got. You would have to have, 10, 20, 30, billion dollars just to get in bed with these guys. So what private equity does is you can syndicate the resource. So the three of us, for instance, can pool our money and go in and say we want to be limited partners of the Dallas Cowboys as part of this private equity deal. And in turn, they would give us a nominal stake in that company, right? So that's an easy way for us to take advantage of getting into a market that's typically illiquid. And then we get the advantage of the return those guys are seeing. You'll find that on the whole, an NFL team, the returns for like the Cowboys, the business of the Cowboys, over the last 10 years, they've probably done, I did some research on it, they did like 700% in returns over the last, 20 years. Whereas the S&P, if I did the same thing, did about 500%. So the opportunity to have a much more substantial return when you look at the business of a team is much, much higher than if you just were to invest in the stock market. So that's why it's so attractive right now. On the other hand, you look at a team like the Kansas City Chiefs, they're not very like the business of the Chiefs, given the demographics, given where they're located, people don't spend as much money on them. So it's interesting to where you look at, you can't necessarily equate a winning program with a winning business strategy. What are you trying to do? You want to win games, or you want to win at the concession stand, the ticket sales? We're selling apparel. What's our TV rights? Things like that. So people are buying in to the former I just talked about, not really worried about the W's they're putting up on the board. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, no, that's right on
Yeah.
point. Pa, I got a question for you. Kind of hitting on what you just mentioned. Does the brand matter more? I guess you're speaking to the brand matters more than actual winning, right?
Right.
So, playing in New York, we didn't necessarily have to win for it to be packed. We didn't, you got people who, you have such a robust amount of people there. You got the tri-state area.
Right.
Our fans always travel well.
Yep.
It's the brand itself is bigger than what we actually producing on the field.
Yep.
And I just wanted to say, are you speaking to that point right there?
Absolutely. So imagine the opportunity to play in New York, the apparel, the legacy, like I said, TV rights, the brand of New York Giants is much more substantial than, say, even a Kansas City Chiefs. Brand of the Dallas Cowboys is much greater than, like, say, the Chargers, right? So those groups, the question is, like, as a fan, the average fan worries about winning games. The average investor is worried about the business model. That it's a company now, right? Dallas Cowboys is a company, right? So an investor, if you and I are doing this the right way, we're going to study the business model, the demographics of the people buying, where they're located. I mean, Dallas Metro is much more substantial, right, than some other areas. New York, obviously, much more substantial than some of these other places. So the brand, the business of what they're doing, in particular, the TV rights, man, there's so much money in that and what they're doing right now. So, like, you're seeing this influx of private equity, even the biggest groups, the Carlyle Group, Blackstone, some of these are trillion-dollar funds where they're now looking at opportunities to go in and buy pieces of these teams, sometimes at discounts because the owners want to create liquidity events. They're like, we've been holding on to this for X number of years, but I'm not able to get out because no one can afford to buy us, right?
Right.
And I can do that now. Like, now I can go get liquid with a portion of my money, diversify or divest, if you will, into something else, and it creates opportunity for someone else on the private equity side.
So the next part of my question is totally shifting, and just doing my own research on it, and obviously just figuring out from the top to the bottom, like, what exactly is private equity, right? Mm-hmm. Looking at some groups, like you just spoke to, the Carlyle Group, the Blackstone, and it's weird because the private equity model is the total opposite of what the NFL is offering.
Right.
The NFL is offering 10% only, whereas other leagues offer 30%. I looked at the MLB and basketball in particular offering 30%.
Yeah.
The NFL is a little bit more of a, not in a bad way, good old boys club. You got some teams that are family owned, the Mara family, the Bidwells. You got people that's like, this is what we do. Paul Brown, so I'm like, what is it? What's in it for the private equity? I mean, their model speaks more to short term, just looking at like apartments, right? And how a lot of private equity owns apartment complexes.
Yeah.
And so you buy them cheap, You go do a couple things, you raise the rent up.
Right.
People can't afford. Now you change the price point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
You
no
get
doubt.
in, get out, and you've made money, and that doesn't speak to what the NFL is offering. So, what's in it
Yeah.
for the private equity groups?
I mean, again, remember we just talked about the ability to have accelerated returns. The NFL still represents one of the most profitable industries in the country.
Right.
So, from that standpoint, that's absolutely attractive, particularly if you can buy them at a discount. Like I said, if you're in there and you're wanting to unload your position, you're sometimes willing to sell things at a quote unquote discount to what it's actually worth. And that allows a private equity group to come in and take advantage of that situation. Number two is it's considered a non correlated asset class. Most private equity deals are not structured around investing in traditional places, right? They're usually looking at what we call alternative investments, whether it's real estate or, a sports team, because they're looking for opportunities to have market neutral strategies. All they care about is cash flows and distributions, right? An opportunity to take advantage of some of those price points we talked about. So I would think that with accelerated returns, opportunities to invest in something non-correlated to conventional markets, and it's sexy, right? Like
Right.
that represents pretty great opportunities for not only themselves, but for investors that are utilizing their services. I think that's probably the biggest piece of this. It's like they can jump in and take advantage of some of these opportunities, even as valuations of these football teams continues to explode. There ain't nobody slowing down, dude. Think about this: like the demand for a ticket has not stopped.
Right.
Even if you had even when you went through COVID, right? You're still watching the game.
Yeah.
It's what we
no,
call inelastic demand, right? So no matter what the hell happens, good market, bad market, lost your job, got your job, whatever,
Right.
you are gonna buy your $125 ticket or whatever the price point is, right?
Right.
So that is for a private equity group who's built on, hey, what's the cash flows here? It's like you can almost bet that people are spending money on these tickets, and so that presents a very nice opportunity because it doesn't create guarantees, but it certainly creates consistency.
Yeah, no, looking at the numbers, man, I mean, the valuations going up yearly with NFL teams. And I've always had this conversation with people. You never lose money in football.
Right.
I don't care if it's Pop Warner all the way to the pros. People will stop what they're doing. You can get
Right.
people who don't, whether it's a racial thing or whatever, a
Yep.
social demographic, whatever, they don't like each other. And they'll
Right.
come together for 3 hours and watch a
Watch a
game
game.
and then go back to hating each other. You know
No
what I mean?
doubt.
So
No
Yeah.
doubt.
it's kind of like somebody finally saw that and was like, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
man, this is something like you just said. It's always gonna be there. Whether we
Yeah.
have a pandemic going on, we
Yeah.
got threat of something crazy. Football
Yeah.
will be watched.
Right. And they're going to watch it some way, somehow. If you're not in the stands, you've bought the package on direct TV, whatever. So that goes back to the TV rights. So either way, they're getting paid, dude, and you're going to buy it.
Yeah.
So it's that's why there's such an opportunity. Now, the question really was, why is the NFL so late to the dance? You had the NBA, you had Major League Soccer, you had baseball. All those were already in play for several years. I mean, the NFL is just now getting up on this train here a little bit. And I think that has to do, maybe you've got some knowledge about this more so than I do. You've been in there. But I really think it's a control issue. It's
Yes.
they want to keep control of the image of the sport, what it looks like, who's all involved, that old boys network you're talking about. And when you start letting private equity in, remember I said it's an equity interest. That means all of a sudden they have and particularly if that percentage goes up, all of a sudden they've got voting rights. They can start, they can now change or direct how things are happening in the back office, right, or the front office for that matter. So
Right.
so I think to me, and I'd like to hear what you had to say about that. It's a lot of it has to deal with control, and now they're so big. It's we almost don't have a choice. I don't know.
Well, I think, me and Kevin have spoken to this. I mean, football as a sport is weird because I don't know if fans feel this. they have essentially interjected football into every month of the year. I mean, you can watch football every month. Now we have insight into training camps. Now we watching the draft with with live stuff going on around it. The combine is televised. I mean, so and even being in it, man, a lot of people don't know. Breast Cancer Awareness Month. The saluting to the military. It's noble causes that they get behind, but best believe they're getting paid for that. Yeah. Everything in the NFL is money. If you're not paying us, we not trying to hear it. And just doing my own research, I think the NFL did a good job of taking their time and seeing these other sports and how the shares and they saw it play out on that side and said, okay, hey, let's slow play this. We're okay with this because I think it was 30-1 voted yes for it. I think the Bengals owner was the only
Bengals
owner.
were the only ones, yeah.
And it's a family business. He didn't. That's all I got type of thing.
Right.
And it's ironic how certain teams, when it comes to paying players, are stingier than others. Certain teams, hey, pies up for a deal. Okay, we'll stall him out for a month. We're gonna pay you.
Yeah. Exactly.
Bengals, nah. You're not gonna play for this. Bye. Type of thing. So, I think with that being said, I think like you just spoke to control, they weren't going to give up with so much. And even what they've given up, the private equity has no say so in day-to-day operations. It's literally like, here's your piece, go sit down somewhere.
I think they're pretty much limited partners or silent partners. I don't think they're going to have enough influence.
And I think they did their homework. I think they slow played it as long as they could. And I want to get your thought on something. And excuse me if I'm kind of jumping around on this, Kevin.
Yeah.
Me and Kevin was talking about it before we got you in, and I said, I think it's a necessary thing to have the private equity money for the quarterback play, because the quarterback salaries keep going up and up and up. And if you looked at a pie chart of the salary cap from team to team, man, quarterbacks once they get outside that rookie deal, I mean, they're taking up. Some teams
the majority of the deal. Yeah.
And it's like clockwork, right? Once they pay the quarterback, you got like 2 years before they start chipping away at their roster. Why? Because we can't pay everybody.
Right.
And to me, what we just talked about, the NFL slow playing it. You got two other sports, particularly the Major League Baseball and basketball. Baseball doesn't have a salary cap.
Right.
In the NBA, they can manipulate it, take salary, the luxury tax and type of thing. So I say all that to say, I think, and maybe this is out of totally left field, maybe it's a situation where, hey, private equity come in, we have to find a way to mitigate these quarterback salaries. Because they just keep them go up and up and up. Maybe you expand the salary cap because you have more cash on hand now. Because I can't believe that they're going to go to quarterbacks and say, hey, look, $60 million is as much as you're going to make. Because then all of them going to say, you know what, take it. We'll go play in Canada somewhere. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, it's to me, I think it's something that's been researched, and they've looked at the dollar figures and what's possible. And like you said, branding. And even with some of the smaller markets, I mean, you still have – Green Bay gonna always sell out, man. As bad as the Commanders have been, you'd be surprised. Their fan base is crazy. Obviously
they're still in there. Buffalo, things like that. It's wild.
Other than the Panthers, they trash. They trash.
They are super trash. But even them, man. I mean, they have a solid fan base relative to how long they've been in existence.
Right.
Now you go to like Jacksonville. Surprisingly, you come here to Atlanta. Like we got Falcons fans, like the true Atlanta people. We got a lot of transient people here. Yeah. We come here and play. It'd be all Jets fans. Anytime Pittsburgh come here, it's all Pittsburgh. Raiders come and sell it out. You know what I mean?
People travel, dude. They travel well. I don't know where they get the money to do this every weekend. But they travel in droves, and they'll come to your town and spend $4,000 or $5,000 on the weekend, right? Yeah. Between whatever they did for the game, going to the game, spending in the town. So, it's inelastic. That demand is always there for football. For whatever reason, people are willing to spend that kind of money on it, and it's huge. And so what the private equity will do is it won't necessarily impact the salary caps unless there's big changes with 32 teams. But it gives me more capital in the business behind the team.
Right.
So now I can put more into the stadium. Your
Right.
experience at the game is better. Our jumbotron is bigger, right?
Right.
We got more state of the art stuff. So now me as a consumer is going to spend more because now I'm living the high life that I wanted to. There's a VIP club in here. We got a lounge and like all the things that go into the behind. That's what I'm talking about. It's not just the salary cap, right? You can't get any higher than what you've given, like what they've stated is what you can give to players, right? What you can't do is have capital inflow and everything else. So we got luxury seats, we got the skybox, we got the jump, we got all that. So now my experience is better as a fan. I'm gonna spend more money when I roll out to that stadium, right? Now that helps the bottom line, not just winning a Super Bowl. Our ROI on like everything else involved in that organization is far greater because we got more resources to turn a profit.
Pa, before you get out of here, I know you got to go. One last question: If you had to pull out your financial crystal ball, where do you see this in
If I had
5
that
to 6
crystal ball,
years?
dude, you be talking to me from Bora Bora. What was the question? I got lost.
Where do you see this in this? Where do you see the position and the role of these private equity investment firms in 5 to 6 years as it relates to the NFL specifically?
I mean, I don't know. They're going to cap them out because remember we just talked about these guys are greedy and they're still hungry in this old boys club. Like they're not going to let. You're never going to see where it's like 50% or more ownership with private equity. At least in my opinion, that'd be really tough because now the owners lose control and the 32 dudes in that room or families in that room. I'm not giving that up, man. Like they will fight tooth and nail. So I don't know that it will become much more prominent. There will be, like Calvin's talking about, at some point they're going to cap out and be like, hey, 30% is the max. I think it's 10% right now. So I don't think, I think it will increase because if my theory is right and the revenues continue to expand as a result of the capital infusion you're getting for the business of it, it'll speak for itself, right? So it will continue to grow. But it's hard. I'd be hard pressed to say that you're going to see private equity take over the NFL. Got the same. We could have this whole other discussion about this, where they're trying to do the same thing in college sports. Did you hear about them trying to essentially separate the football teams or like football and basketball from the school?
Yeah.
And private equity squads would come in and buy a football team. I mean, they're just going after the revenue generating sports, and that's a whole difference.
We got to have you back to talk about that one because we started in on that discussion. Jason Williams was in an article talking about how he would love to own a large portion of Duke basketball.
Oh my God! Yeah, I mean talk about brands and being the one of the most prolific teams ever from a branding standpoint. You got Duke, Kentucky, UNC, Kansas. They go after those hard, dude.
Wow.
But I mean, just think about that. So we can parlay this into a whole nother discussion on the college circuit. But yeah, man, I think you'll see private equity continue to thrive. The opportunities for higher net worth people will probably be there. Not so much for guys like us. You got to have $multi-million you want to throw at some of these deals. I mean, it's not. I think they were talking something like Jeff Bezos and some of these guys were wanting to buy into this. And they didn't have enough money to do it. They were like, it became cost prohibitive for them to look at it. It's a stupid amount of money that you need to buy into this. But as a pool, we can syndicate the deal. We can go in there and get a couple shares, so you'll see more and more high net worth people start to take advantage of that because it's fun, it's sexy, the business models work, they make a lot of money, and it's non-correlated to the stock market. And that's the bottom line. So,
well, Pa, man, thanks for taking the time out to jump on with us. We're gonna have you back real soon to continue this and really dive into college athletics and see what that's going to look like.
No doubt. Go Deeps.
Appreciate it, Pa.
Appreciate it, man. Pace, that was some interesting information to hear it from someone in the industry to kind of lay it out for our listeners about what that can mean. And so, we want to continue on, man, and really share that discussion you and I were talking about the quarterback play, but also about the money that's involved. But something else you and I mentioned earlier was, what does the future look like in the immediate future? And we talked about two particular players. We talked about Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter coming in and really changing the game at their respective positions. I think Travis Hunter will play both positions in the NFL. I understand what some people have been saying, but my concern is, will the two of them be physically healthy going into the draft, considering that they are the highest ranked players, but they're also taking the biggest beating physically week in and week out at their respective positions. So I want to get your take on that.
Man, Deion had him more than ready. Make no mistake about it. Deion, obviously, probably one of the greatest. Not without doubt, he is one of the greatest defensive backs we've ever seen. So he understands the process and understands what the future holds. So when I say that, I mean they're going to play as long as this season makes sense for them to play. And even still, when you get rated so high, then you start having to not necessarily have to do certain all-star games. Let's just say a situation if either one of them were banged up, I mean, they wouldn't necessarily have to perform at the combine. So, I got to imagine if they're not in a high-level bowl game, I can't see either one of them playing in it. I mean, what do they have to gain? So
Yeah.
I think they'll be ready. I just think it's a matter of the one that's the scariest is Travis Hunter because, man, just going through individual period is risky. You know what I'm saying? Like, so when I say that, I mean, you just put more and more miles on your body, man, and couple that onto the fact that you're doing it on both sides of the ball. Doing it on one side of the ball and doing your thing is an amazing feat. And doing it on both sides is, man, that's superhuman, So I can't imagine that he's doing much in practice during the week. I can't imagine Deion putting much on him.
Yeah, I think he gets 3 days off.
And so that's understandable. I would honestly, man, he just be walking through for me. Like you just too valuable, and you have such a bright future. There's no point. You're that dominant. There's no point, man. You know what I'm saying? Because you got to think about it, man. He's not going in some meetings, and I got to think it's defense. I got to think that he's not going to any defensive meetings. I got to think that Deion could probably just be like, look, you got number 13 today. Wherever he go, that's who you got. Versus, you got to learn offensive plays. That's different. Route combinations, blocking, even snap count, formations, shifts, all that different type of stuff. So, like I said, man, I think they'll both be fine, God willing, and I think Deion will do his part to make sure that. And then I think at that point it just becomes business decisions. Hey, does it make sense for us to play in this bowl game, all-star game, combine?
Yeah. I don't see them doing any of that. I think once the season is over, the regular season is over, regardless of how it shakes out. Like say they're eligible to go to a bowl game. I think after the regular season, I don't think they go to the combine. I don't think they go to any all-star games. For what? What would Travis Hunter get out of going to the combine or going to an all-star game? I'm almost thinking, why even hold a private workout? Like he is one of those that.
Oh, no, I don't work like that, Smitty.
But I feel you, but I'm just saying, what are you going to see in that environment that he hasn't already shown that he could do?
Well, the benefit of it is he will, if he's not going to play in the Senior Bowl, which is a top all-star game, then he benefits by going to interview with teams. Teams do after you the way the day's kind of set up is it's just like normal practice where you get up, you have food, you got meetings, you got taping and all that. You practice, and then in the evening you have teams will be like, hey, Kevin Smith, you got 5 interviews tonight. You got anybody from the Packers to any team, any 5 combinations of team. So you'll do that in the evening, and that's just a way that teams get a chance to know you. You talk through some things, and then at the combine, you don't necessarily have to perform at all. You don't have to do anything from a workout standpoint, but the interviews is what's beneficial.
Yeah.
Again, that's where when they've done their homework on you, they can bring that to you. And sometimes guys have some transgressions. That might be a space where they ask Travis Hunter, "What do you want to play? Do you see yourself
Yeah.
as a wide receiver? Can you do this both ways?" And that way we get some dialogue going. And then teams go back from that point and kind of make decisions. I've seen, when I was doing some intern work with the Jets, you get in situations where guys kind of get themselves off the board. Some guys have bad interviews, and different things. And again, that's a chance for you to get a chance to know the person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I can watch film all day. I can see you run 10 million 40s, but I might not know you as a person. I ain't necessarily had a chance to sit down and talk with you.
Yeah.
Because then you got questions too. Like I said, I might come to you and be like, "Hey, Kevin, what's going on with that DUI you had in 2020?" Oh man.
Yeah.
You know what
But
I'm saying?
Travis Hunter would have to slap a GM for his
Yeah.
stock draft to drop. Shador would have to punch a coordinator in order for their stock draft to really drop. And that's what I'm excited to see. You and I spoke about this earlier. The Heisman race is over at this point. It's Travis Hunter. He's going to win it. I think Shador is the top-rated quarterback that's the most ready to go and play for an NFL team. And I think where they get drafted is basically going to be where a team needs. But I think that any of those teams that have those top two picks, I think for the business reasons that Pi just talked about, from a branding standpoint, fan excitement, I don't see why they wouldn't go one and two in the draft, because they check off all the boxes, and I can see some teams making some late minute moves to try to get them. Again, you got one of the ultimate pros in Coach Sanders, really, Coach Prime, really pushing you and showing you the ins and outs of the interview process. But from a physical standpoint, just working out physically, man, I'm not going to no Senior Bowl for what for those two guys. What would they get out of it? Let's say Colorado wins 7-8 games, right?
Right.
What would they get out of playing in that bowl game? Because right now everybody's gunning for Shador and Travis. And when I saw him make that hit and cause that fumble, that game-winning fumble for them Saturday, that was it. He can tackle, he can do all those things, but I think he poses a salary problem, because how do you pay a rookie that really could be a high draft pick at either position?
I think his rookie deal wouldn't be an issue because it's slotted, meaning like it is a yearly increase from the year before, and they had the number one pick. Let's just say a guaranteed contract of $40 million, and it just keeps going down to the last pick, and it's just kind of incremental. So he can't really, from a negotiation standpoint, there's not going to be any wiggle room. His issue would be, if you're gonna, let's say he does play his first 5 years both ways, he's done well both ways, and as a player, you have to decide, well, which one do you want to be paid as? Because wide receivers are getting paid more than DBs right now. And so what the team is going to do is say they're going to look at the percentage of plays you play and be like, well, from a percentage standpoint, you play more on defense, so we want to pay you as a defensive back. That's when his qualms with payment is going to come into play. But I think the biggest thing, that to your point, they're not necessarily going to have anything to prove, because I think pretty much it's consensus that Shador is, most people would say he's a top quarterback. When you start getting the teams, they rate him however they rate him. Some people love certain people, and you'd be surprised. Certain players that turned out to be amazing, I guarantee you there was somebody that hated the player. Like, he ain't going to be nothing. And you got to think, somebody decided to pick Ryan Leaf over Peyton Manning. Somebody chose,
True.
same thing. Hey, the Panthers chose Bryce Young versus C.J. Stroud. You know what I'm saying? So, at that point, you can't really do much with that. That's just personal. That's just what I like. You know what I mean? But I think neither one of them are going to have many questions to answer. I think the biggest question for either one of them will be Travis Hunter as a DB, because I don't think he's faced really great wide receiver play. But that's not his fault. That's just the division he's in. their non-conference, hadn't spoken to any Alabamas or any of these top-rated teams. That don't have anything to do with him. He don't make the schedule. So
Yeah.
he's done a good job of playing extremely well against the people that he's tasked to play against every week, So I think for him, you ain't got nothing to prove. I mean, like I said, you can go down there and show your face, interview. They
Yeah.
seem like very personable young men, so I think, they're going to do well in any room. But definitely the combine, though. I think definitely the combine they go. We don't see them in the media with bad stuff. There's no reports
Yep.
of them doing anything crazy. The whole NFL know their dad. I mean, we're not talking about people. No disrespect. We're not talking about anybody from Grambling that just did some amazing stuff that don't nobody know anything about the program.
Yeah.
Outside of the HBCU community and people in Louisiana. So, I mean, these guys on the national spotlight, and they've been that way for a minute. So there's not really a lot of outside questions to answer. Outside of just getting to know them better.
And to your point, what other what other players in college football right now has played under a brighter spotlight?
Yeah.
And has handled it the way that they have. I think when they first got to Colorado that first season they were there, it was sort of I would say rough for them because they were facing a lot of criticism. But this season they've seemed to shrug it off even more and really get down to handling business and showing everybody this is what you're gonna get. I mean, Travis Hunter, he's basically said all he does is video games and fish. I mean, that's and to what Pi was saying earlier, when you're talking about the business of the sport, they're going to sell a ton of jerseys because of that. They're going to be able to attract a lot of fans around the excitement, and just whichever teams draft them, I think that they're in for a good little ride, especially if they can get some talent surrounding them. I think that's going to be exciting to watch the rest of the season to see how they progressively get better. Because at this point, they're just going to get better, man, and that's what's exciting to see. I haven't been this excited about college football in a couple of years, just to see these players that. Again, it's not going to be a close Heisman race. If it's a close Heisman race, it's going to be between those two. But I think when you talk about the Heisman, that goes to Travis Hunter, man. I mean, if you're not voting for Travis Hunter for your Heisman, you need your vote taken away quickly, and you shouldn't get it back for another 10 years. And no disrespect to other players, but that kid, that young man is just – in a sense, he is dominating on both sides of the ball. I take his receiving stats and put them against any other receiver. I take his quality of play at DB and put it against any defensive back in the country. And, that's what I think separates him. And I know what you're saying, how the NFL is a good old boy network. Of the professional leagues, they are the most conservative in making rule changes, how they do business. But I think every now and again, once you get those once-a-generation players that because of what they bring to the table, just like Coach Prime, he kind of changed the game financially. And I think Travis is being set up to where he's going to change the game financially. I understand what you're saying. There are rules in place, but if that guy can really show that he can play at that level both ways and is insistent upon it, and he runs into the right organization that gives him that room to do that,
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's going to change the whole rule book and the pay scale, but he might force him to tweak it a little bit.
The only problem with Travis, I think, would be in that interview process. If let's just say, and I'm just off the top of my head, the worst teams right now with Cincinnati, Jacksonville, and
Panthers,
right? Let's say Cincinnati's like, look, bro, we love you at receiver, but we already got T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. But you're so good, we still take you with a third pick. Are you okay with playing DB most of the time and a little bit of receiver? That's a legitimate question. And by you not saying that, you potentially losing out on number 3 money. Let's say you're the next team that's available that really needs you might be picking at 8, right? I'm just saying these things happen.
Yeah.
And I think for Travis, the beauty of it is you're good at both. Let's be real. You're good at both. It's a lot easier to be able to go and have success on defense because at the end of the day, especially a position like DB, if you can cover, you can cover. And a lot of the NFL is playing man to man anyway, a lot. So he could go and thrive, and if not thrive, he can go and progress well. I think there. I think if I'm him, I'm thinking receiver is a lot more risky in terms of success. Because one, if you don't have a quarterback that can get you the ball, you're in trouble. If your offensive system doesn't fit what you can do well, you're in trouble. And then just in general, I mean, offense just takes more. If you got a solid quarterback but your offensive line trash, he ain't gonna have time to get you the ball. If you get with a team that's running the ball a lot, you're not gonna have as many opportunities. And let's just be real about it. The higher you pick, the worse you are as a team. The less complete you are as a team. You're missing a lot of stuff. Obviously, the higher you pick, the less you have from a roster talent standpoint. Obviously, the lower you pick in the first round, 32nd, you balling, you the best, right? So I think Travis is gonna have to kind of, I don't know, hopefully his team around him, whoever that is, they're going to have to figure out a plan when he gets his agent, his financial people to kind of how they want to do this. Because, I mean, you're talking about money. You're talking about a situation with, whoever might potentially want him. And then again, like I said, if you get with an offense that don't fit what you do well, that don't look right. If you get with a trash defense, man, you can still get out there corner and ball. Because at that point, it's just like, hey, I got him. You know how to play zone coverage and those type of things. And it's still early in the season. To your Heisman point, I think the only thing with Travis that hurts him the worst is playing at Colorado. You're not going to be in a playoff conversation, and there's going to be a voter that's going to hold that against him. Because what we've seen the last 20 plus years, all the Heisman winners are typically playing in the old school New Year's Day bowls, or now it's the playoff, right? And so I think people just have kind of, it's hard for people to change, you know what I'm saying, their thinking. I mean, you see, we just not getting to a point where we're okay with targeting. We just not getting there, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
People was okay with guys out there getting murdered and whatever else happened, So I think, hopefully, the majority of voters can say, hey, look, man, this guy was just literally the best overall player. Bar whatever his records was and all of that, he was dominant on both sides of the ball. And so we've seen a little snippet of it with Charles Woodson and a couple of guys, but we haven't ever seen a guy do it full time. So, I mean, I'm totally with you. I think he's the favorite. And I will say this. I think Cam Ward, I don't think he can win it. But I do think he can make it interesting if Miami can get, let's say, the second round of the playoffs. Definitely playoffs. I think he can make it interesting because I mean he doing his thing in Miami. I'm not gonna lie to you. He doing his thing. Definitely not like Travis, but he's. I think if he keep going, I think he could be in a conversation.
And I think I agree with you. There'll be other candidates for sure, and there'll be some great discussion around it. But to mitigate the need to be in that New Year's Day bowl, that late December, early January bowl, to be in the playoff has just been the media attention that Coach Prime has helped bring to the program and to those players. No other team is getting that much attention as Colorado just off the strength of your head coach. You have some programs that are doing it because they're winning, but he has done a great job of putting eyeballs on their games each and every week, even when they're playing in a different time zone. Man, I stayed up late to watch them play. So it'll be, again, we've got a lot of exciting stuff to talk about with college football. I'm excited about it. But before we jump off, I just, want to let remind you of something and the listeners of something real quick. And I'm just going to,
Hey, I say this to you.
Is that? Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. That was the Steelers Cup. They undefeated.
Hey, listen, I'm very respectful of the Steelers, the brand, especially Mike Tomlin, because I'm like, if you can get, because yearly they really kind of like they've had the same start for probably the last 5 years. Then they had some different quarterback play, but I mean, you honestly, man, he took a broken Justin Fields, literally a broken Justin Fields from a confidence standpoint, and they playing good ball. I mean, I think Mike Tomlin is probably one of the greatest when he gets done. He's already there now, but definitely when he gets done, like one of the greatest leaders of men that we've seen in the pro sports game. In college, I mean not college, but in sports in general. Just being
Yeah.
able to deliver a message, having people rally behind that, and then just going out there and doing your thing. And every year you look up and it's like, damn, the Steelers in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
And yeah.
I'm
That's what I
definitely.
like about him. He hasn't. While the focus over the years has been on Big Ben, Antonio Brown, and some other players on offense, what I love about it is he hasn't gotten away from a branding standpoint, or even from a coaching standpoint of remembering what the Steelers are really about, and that's defense. They don't have the bright stars on defense this year, but that defense is balling. I mean, and that's really been the foundation of what they've been able to do over the years. And okay, you want to talk about the quarterback, you want to talk about these other positions on offense, that's fine. But when that defense is healthy and playing well, and what people forget is, a couple of years ago, this was a young defense. And so he's been able to keep that core of good players together, and now they balling out. I think that, once they get into that hardcore divisional play, playing the Ravens and some other teams in that division, we're really going to see what they're made of. But it's important for them to start off this way, so when they do hit that rough patch, when they do hit that point where, players start to, when you start factoring in the weeks of training camp, then those first weeks of the season, and you start looking towards that bye week that may be 2-3 weeks away, and you kind of hit that rough part. I want to see how they can weather that storm. But I just want to send that reminder to
No,
you and
man.
everybody out there on what we got on the line.
I'm gonna tell you what's one of the more impressive things about the Steelers is they all homegrown. Steelers are probably one of the least active teams in free agent yearly. I don't care where. I
Yeah.
mean, don't get me wrong. They'll add a couple guys, but they're never gonna break the bank anytime on the free agent market. Why? Because you're able to draft a T.J. Watt, who's been there 10, 11 years. You're able to
Yep.
draft Cam Hayward. All the old school guys, Antonio Brown, Hines, all of them were draft picks and stayed there. Troy Polamalu. So,
They got a system.
there are a couple franchises that can get it right and they consistently get it right. But that's been impressive from the standpoint of, because typically, man, I mean, you got teams from all different types of spectrums. Like the Patriots' old model used to be, we'll let you ball all the way out, and then when it's time for you to pay you, we're gonna send you somewhere else because we don't want to pay you,
Yeah.
right? Then you have other teams where they can't draft for nothing, but we'll go spend a whole bunch of money in free agency.
Yeah.
Then you got teams that's somewhere in the middle. They spend a little bit, they can draft halfway decent, but for them to be able to stick to their guns, like this is what we do. This guy fits. This guy doesn't fit. And I'm gonna tell you, man. I know we got to get off, man. I heard one of the most impressive conversations with Tomlin. He was on the Pivot podcast, and he was talking about just coaching, as it is. And he was like, a lot of coaches run from coaching, and he was like, I run to it. You know what I'm saying? He's a lot of people put labels on players from the standpoint of they can't play or they can't think and whatever. And he was just like, man, if everybody could think, we wouldn't need teachers. If everybody had, and he was, he ended it with saying it's a coping mechanism for some coaches because it's saying that you're struggling as a coach. You can't give this person what he needs, so you're going to label him as he can't do this. And it was profound to me because I was like, okay, that's essentially how he's able to get these guys going every year and year out. You know what I'm saying? Hey, you might not have the measurables or Justin Fields. They saying that you can't do this and do that. But I tell you what, we can teach you certain things and we can expound upon what you do well. And then if nothing else, you and I both know this, a big part of playing and succeeding is confidence. Once you get to a point where you feel confident in your abilities and your knowledge of the game, you good then. I don't care
Yeah.
what your measurables are. Once you get confidence, you are good to go. Now,
Yeah.
once that confidence start wavering, man, it's gonna be a shit show.
Yeah.
You're gonna be all over the place.
next show we're gonna have to talk about that the C word, confidence, especially when it comes to the quarterback play in the NFL right now. And I really want us to do a deep dive into that confidence and how we've seen the lack of confidence, maybe delay the development of some quarterbacks, and having more confidence really pushes the development of other quarterbacks, and how important it is to have that quarterbacks coach, the coordinator, head coach that really can push that confidence at the right level especially for these. We've seen a lot of young quarterbacks, man. The NFL is in transition this year. They're looking for that next star. They're looking for the next face. Every program is looking for who's that next face of the program, of the organization, that's going to really, not just from an on-the-field wins or losses perspective, but as Pi alluded to, from a business perspective, who can sell jerseys, who can put butts in the seats, who can get people to tune in. And when Pi laid that out, I really started to see the importance of Jerry Jones signing Dak Prescott. Now it's starting to make sense when you talk about a business decision that was made about keeping Dak in place with Dallas. Well, look, man, Pace, again, another dope show. We're going to jump back on. We got to do this again, and we're going to jump into some college and pro football. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll catch up with y'all next week.